Let's welcome to the 10th class. Now, in the last class, I introduced you to anthrax, and we reached up to the cutaneous anthrax, and I told you that this is not a very new disease or new pathogen. This is known for a long time, but it's in recent time. This is among those hallmark pathogen which has been used as a bioterrorist agent, and we concluded the last class with the cutaneous anthrax, and I showed you the symptoms. If you recollect it, that at the site there will be a swelling, something like this. If you look at it, something like a swelling like this, and in the center there will be a spot, black spot. So eventually this swelling will go away and you will be left with a small kind of a dip with the black mark on it, and this is the classic symptom of stage 1 to stage 2 of the anthrax. Now, today we will talk about the inhalation anthrax. So, inhalation, as I mentioned in the previous class, that is the most dangerous one because it directly gets into your lungs and affect the lungs. And if we look at the slide, this is how the inhalation, a chest X-ray of a 46-year-old male 4 months after onset of anthrax. So, if you look at it, these places, these are all infected spores of anthrax, and it causes severe breathing problem, and blood exchange sites are being compromised in the alveoli, where you have the deoxygenated blood coming and giving out the carbon dioxide and picking up the fresh oxygen which you are inhaling through your nose. Those sites of alveoli are all infected. So, essentially you are suffering from lack of oxygen, and your CO2 exchange and oxygen intake is being compromised, and eventually this leads to respiratory issues. And since your body has less oxygen, so automatically this leads to extreme tiredness. As you see the symptoms, it leads to headache and body aches because of lack of oxygen, leads to nausea and stomach pains, confusion or dizziness because of lack of oxygen. Your brain functioning is severely compromised. So, remember one thing, whenever you have these kind of symptoms, it means dizziness, confusion, one of the best ways is to realize that your brain is not getting sufficient oxygen and nutrients to function, because they always say if you have to go for a night out study, do not take heavy food, because the reason being your brain is the maximum consumer of energy. Now, if you take a heavy food, a lot of your energy will go in the gut to digest the food. So, automatically you will not be in a proper shape to study because you have to focus. So, they always say that if you really want to go for a night out study, then you better eat early and you eat less, so that after a while when you go for a night out, you get enough energy for the brain. But this small cue is good enough to understand that your brain starts to feel tired, your body starts to feel tired because they are not getting enough nutrients, and exactly that's what happened in inhalation. So, you are basically at debilitating conditions what you are creating. Say for example, there is a population, and if you could infect them with anthrax, their activity will go down. And think of it, if this one does in an army base or people who are stationed in areas of country's border, the soldiers, if you could contaminate their food or contaminate something, this could be extremely hazardous. Now, you realize that why these understanding in symptoms, because you can completely make a unit inactive by having this inhalation anthrax in place. Then it leads to severe chest pain, cough, and shortness of breath. As I was mentioning, heavy sweat and fever and chills. When you talk about the heavy sweat, this may be a cue for you to go for a sensor, because when we are talking about a heavy sweat, it means it is, along with it, it is giving out a lot of volatiles out there. I do not know if has anybody done it or not, but it's just a thought which crisscrossed my mind, and I thought of sharing that with you. Now talking about the gastrointestinal anthrax, okay, which I have already mentioned. This comes from your eating poorly cooked meat or uncooked meat or uncooked animal product. These kind of anthrax passes on. It led to the similar thing: fever and chills, swelling of the neck and the neck glands, sore throat and hoarseness and pain when swallowing, nausea and vomiting, especially bloody vomiting. Be very careful about this, because this you can confuse with TB also. Okay. Diarrhea or bloody diarrhea again. So if you look at it, every time there is a headache, red face and red eyes, stomach pain and swelling, and fainting. Now, one thing you realize, whenever you hear this, there is a bloody vomiting or bloody diarrhea, that means, it tells you something. That means this pathogen, the toxin, damages the blood vessels. Because whenever the blood vessels get damaged, this blood comes out through the different orifices of your body. It can come out while you are coughing, it can come out in your stool, it can come out from wherever it needed. So you realize that the toxins which are generated, and another thing, if you remember, while I was showing you the structure, and I can go back for you guys to look at it, there are a couple of very interesting things which we saw, and so look at it. It has a extracellular polydglutamate PDGA capsule, the lethal factor LF, the edema factor EF, and all of which are coded in one of the two plasmids. Look at it. So these edema factor, which is causing it to swell, that's, I was telling you that this swelling and the toxic factor are the ones which causes most of it. So edema factor and TF, the toxic factor. So we have already seen the situation when there is a swelling first of all, and then there is a black spot in the center, and then this whole thing becomes black, stage 2. Okay. And they damages the blood vessels, they reduce down your oxygen, and of course red face and red eyes, because of blood vessels are dilated. Why blood vessels are dilated? Because whenever there is a loss or lack of oxygen, the blood vessel automatically gets dilated in order to get as much oxygen as possible. So whenever there is a dilation, you see there is a more red shade at that part of your body. Okay. Now we move on to about anthrax prevention. Now there is a vaccine called anthrax vaccine adsorbed, AVA. This is one of the known vaccines, 3 shots of anthrax vaccine over 4 weeks. Now think of it. If you are not prepared for an anthrax attack or anthrax outrage, either you have this vaccine made and stored, but their efficacy will go down and the cost of storage, or you should have a fast methodology to produce them, or your population should get anthrax shots. Which is the best strategy, I do not know. But after these slides, you must have realized that probably, as they say, detection or prevention is better than cure. So, I say detect it as much as early and let there be strong surveillance. Pardon me if my spelling is wrong on that. Detection even before you reach to the point of getting infected with anthrax. The antibiotic, we pronounce it doxycycline and ciprofloxacin. These are some of the strong antibiotics which can take care of anthrax, and they are easily available in the market. But the point is, it has to be detected right, as I am telling you, because most of its symptom, if you read about TB and anthrax, you will see very similar kind of symptoms coming through. So, unless you talk to a specialized doctor, do not take the medication, because unless it is being detected whether it is a TB, then that it will have a different course versus anthrax. And both of them suffer from one common challenge, as I was mentioning, is dormant spores. These dormant spores are the major challenge. So, all our efforts, as we will be talk about, will be to detect those dormant spores, and for anything, whether it is TB, whether it is anthrax, whether it is any other where there is a dormant phase. And the other aspect, you always have to remember, those plasmids, you remember, POX1, POX2, those plasmids, they have these edema factor coding, toxic factor coding. These sequence and the product, these factors, these biomolecules, what they are making, are of extreme importance for production of antibodies against them. These are the ones based on which all these vaccines are being developed. So, you take these factors, put it in an animal, the animal responds back by producing antibodies against it, and then you screen through and you go through series of processes, and that is what makes as the first step towards prevention. So, now from here, there are a few things what I will like to highlight. Preventing exposure to anthrax at certain jobs. As we must have realized, anthrax can be an occupational hazard. Okay, this is a technical term, occupational hazard. What kind of occupations you are into? Working in a laboratory that handles anthrax. So, it is a category A pathogen. So, you have to be extremely careful. You cannot afford to take chance when you are working in an anthrax lab or you are working in a building where people work on anthrax. You have to be extremely careful, and such laboratories needs extremely high security. Working with animals or handling animal products. I have already mentioned it, again reiterating the fact, we are talking about leather industry, fur industry, meat industry, wool industry, so on and so forth. There are series of them, but you have to be extremely careful when you are dealing with them. So, every now and then there has to be screening and surveillance for anthrax. Traveling in certain parts of the world. There are parts of the world, and I will come to you in one of the maps, I will show you. There are parts of the world where anthrax is very prominent. So, you have to be careful about those parts when you are traveling. Should be already vaccinated, and plus you carry the AB stand for antibiotics. Okay. Welding and metalworking, I have already mentioned this. This is a very emerging form. This is one of the most emerging one, because there are so many people working in the welding industry and metal industry, metal cutting industry. This is something to watch out for. This was not reported in the textbook even when I studied all these things. Okay. In the event of bioterrorist attack, handling mails, as this is already proven thing, working for the military and supporting emergency response activities. These are some of the basic points what one has to understand to secure or biosecure our surrounding when there is an anthrax attack. And on the base of this, let's try to see the overall picture. So, anthrax, a possible transmission pathway of Bacillus anthracis in humans, mammals, through ingestion, inhalation, or cutaneous pathway. We have already discussed this. Now, look at the flow chart. So, this is the livestock we are talking about, and it could be poultry also. This is not added here. Now, wildlife, these could be the vectors, and here the human. And there is a continuous interaction among all of them. And here you have the reservoir, soil. So, from soil it can directly get here, it can go here, it can go here. And then it is a cycle, it is a chain. So, this brings us to the vector ecology or the carrier. When you talk about the vector, we are talking about the carrier of anthrax in this case, vector ecology of anthrax, which all animals or insects. So, this is like tick, these are the mosquitoes, bats. These vector ecology or understanding the carrier of anthrax is of immense importance for surveillance, safety, and prevention. Food which we derive from animal world, our continuous working in the soil and other spots where there is a possibility of anthrax, one has to be extremely careful, and personal hygiene is essential situation. And as we have already talked about, anthrax can get into your system via cutaneous route, means skin surface, through ingestion, through inhalation. So, it is extremely essential that time to time soil screening is being done in areas where there is a suspicion or where there is a possibility that anthrax may emerge, especially when you talked about in the previous slide about those places in the world where traveling to certain parts of the world which are more prone to anthrax. Now, having said this, this is the map I wanted to show you, anthrax, the global map and the local insight. So, if we follow this map from top to bottom, there are 3 maps here, A, B and C. So, when you see red color here, that means extremely high propensity of anthrax. Okay. So, globally environmental suitability for Bacillus anthracis, map A. Map A is the most conservative map. They say, this is the map. When I say most conservative map, means means anthrax is there, but it's not going to spread really through. So, if you look at this map, there are these red spots, somewhere in China, somewhere in southern part of Africa, this is completely free, and somewhere out here, which is kind of border of United States and Canada, and few small pockets here and there. This is the most conservative map. So, Southeast Asia and Russia is again almost free from much of it. Okay. So, this is the most conservative map that people believe. It is there, these part of the world. If you travel, just be careful. Second map is, if you look at the map B, is the most pragmatic map. This is the most practical utility map. If you look at the practical utility map, you look how the area has increased. Now, you could really see the red color very prominently. Here what you see now, look at the area. Now, what you could not see here is this is the amount of area. Now, which was small is now much more broader, but still this part is free from it. So, when you talk about this second map, map B, which is the most pragmatic map. So, this pragmatic map is the one which in the current world may be our best bet, that there are possibilities here, then we should have preventive measures, and if needed certain degree of stockpiling of the vaccines or easier way to produce vaccine in such areas is essential. And the third map is the most liberal estimate of a probability where Bacillus anthracis occur. If you look at this one, now this is far bigger, almost part of India, almost the eastern coast of India. See how this, and now for the first time and Australia. I forgot to mention Australia, there is hardly anything. So, this third map, which is the C, which is the most liberal estimate, this is an estimate which at times can be a little overdoing it, but at times maybe a easier way. But this is a very personal point. I believe the map B is where most of our strategy makers work. That okay, there is a possibility. Map A is a very conservative one. Like in the modern world, it is not a wise idea to be that conservative. Rather, I will go with the map B, which is the most pragmatic one. But I will leave it up to you people where you want to see the world, because these are the predictions based on possibilities, chances, this areas of anthrax can work, and likewise. And next I will show another map, anthrax map of the 3 continents of Asia, Europe and Africa. So, this is the kind of things, if going by the number, okay, and this is for the period 1992 to 2020. Okay. So, it is almost 28 years, 25% prevalence, 23% prevalence, 29% prevalence. And this is exactly showing the geographical scenario. These numbers are pretty high, to be honest with you. This prevalence is, and now if you look at the previous map, this is exactly when you talk about 25% prevalence, and Europe is almost same, 23, 25, but Africa on the contrary has 29% prevalence. The specific zones are being shown where it is. So, these are the kind of informatics or health informatics or anthrax informatics or medical informatics, whichever way you want to call it. These are the prediction algorithms which are developed over the years to tell you that, say for example, when COVID happened, people started predicting how COVID is going to shift, how it is going to move from one part of the world to another part of the world. And if you remember it right, we never thought that the whole country of ours will be shut down, but it actually migrated, and it migrated in a very short span of time because there is a lot of travel which happens across the world. So, if you need one infection and rest, if you cannot isolate that infected person, then that could be the beginning of a huge population getting infected. So, most of these pathogens have this very peculiar stuff. So, years and decades and centuries to come, we will not be able to stop it really. But what we can do is that we learn and become more mature with these pathogens. We understand how they are spreading, and we work on these kind of maps where all our strategy makers can focus and understand, and such informatics and such intelligence is the key to counter. See, by no means one can say that we will be completely free from all these problems. There will always be these things and they will erupt. Today it is anthrax, tomorrow it can be even a virulent form of TB, other day it could be Ebola, and it will continue. But we just have to be far more smarter. After COVID, we have learned that. So, I will close in here for this class, and the next class we will talk about why and how it became a bioterrorist agent. Okay, thank you.